I'm recording this because pretending it didn't happen is harder than admitting it did. If you're listening to this late at night, alone, I want you to know something first. Nothing jumps out. Nothing screams. Nothing announces itself. That's how it starts in real life. Quiet things always come first. The house didn't look cursed. That's what fooled me. In anime, haunted places bleed atmosphere the moment you see them. This one didn't. It blended in. A dull structure on a street that had learned how to forget itself. The paint was faded, the windows slightly clouded, as if they hadn't been opened in years. The front door resisted when I tried to open it, not aggressively, just enough to remind me I was entering something that didn't expect visitors anymore. Inside, the air was wrong. Not cold, not warm. Still. Like the house was holding its breath. I remember standing there with my bags, listening. No ticking clock, no distant traffic. Just a faint pressure behind my ears, like altitude sickness without the height. I told myself it was stress. That explanation became my favorite lie. The first night, I slept on the floor. The ceiling above me felt too close, like it was leaning down to watch. Shadows didn't behave correctly. They stretched in places where light shouldn't allow it. When I turned my phone screen off, the darkness didn't fully settle. It hovered, layered, like multiple transparencies stacked on top of each other. That's when I heard it. Not footsteps. A presence adjusting itself. A soft scrape, like skin brushing against a wall. It moved slowly, deliberately, as if whatever made the sound was aware of how thin the barrier between us really was. I froze, eyes wide, heart hammering so hard I was sure it would give me away. The sound stopped outside my door, then came a breath. Not mine. Long, shallow, tired, like something that had been waiting for a very long time. Nothing else happened. No escalation, no reveal. Just the certainty that something had acknowledged me. In the days that followed, the house observed me. That's the only way I can describe it. Sounds followed patterns. When I paced, the walls creaked in response. When I sat still, the house grew quieter, like it didn't want to interrupt my thoughts. The silence felt intentional, curated. At night, the hallway grew longer. I don't mean physically, I mean perceptually. When I looked down it, the shadows thickened, stretching farther than they should have, like the house was expanding inward. I hung a mirror there, old glass I'd picked up cheaply because the space felt wrong without a focal point. The mirror changed everything. Reflections lagged, movements finished late. Sometimes my reflection blinked when I didn't. Sometimes it stared back with eyes that looked too wet, too alert. At night, when the lights were off, the mirror reflected shapes that didn't exist in the hallway. I moved it to the spare room. The spare room didn't like that. That's when I started waking up at 3:17. Every night, no dreams, no sounds, just awareness snapping into place like a switch flipped inside my skull. The air at that hour felt heavier, saturated. I would lie there staring into the dark, waiting for the footsteps. They always came, bare feet dragging against wood, slow, uneven, like joints that didn't remember how to move properly anymore. The steps never rushed, they weren't hunting, they were patrolling, claiming space. Sometimes they stopped right outside my door. Sometimes I heard fingers brush along the wall, tracing imperfections, learning the layout. One night, I felt breathing on the other side of the door, close enough that the wood vibrated faintly. I pressed my hand against it without thinking. Something pressed back, not forcefully, affectionately. After that, the house stopped pretending it was empty. Whispers seeped from the walls, layered and overlapping, like echoes of conversations that had rotted into fragments. They didn't speak words at first, just emotion, loneliness, hunger, recognition. The mirror began to fog on its own. Handprints appeared and vanished. Reflections multiplied. Sometimes there were two of me, sometimes none. I started seeing figures in my peripheral vision. Tall, thin silhouettes with no faces, standing where corners met. When I turned to look, they flattened themselves into shadows again, obedient but amused. The house began rearranging itself. Doors opened to rooms that felt deeper than they should be. Hallways stretched, corners darkened unnaturally. The spare room became colder every night, the mirror inside it humming softly like it was resonating with something beneath the floor. One night, I woke to the sound of someone sitting on my bed. The mattress dipped. I smelled dust, old paper, rot that had dried instead of decayed. A hand rested on my shoulder, heavy, claiming. I didn't scream, I couldn't. Something in my chest told me screaming would be a mistake. Images flooded my head, not hallucinations, memories. A man sitting alone in that spare room for years, talking to the mirror, listening when it answered. Slowly being copied, studied, absorbed. He didn't die, he stayed. His body left eventually, but the rest of him learned how to live in reflections, in silence, in footsteps. The house didn't trap him, it completed him. That's what it wanted from me. To learn me, to practice being me. The whispers grew clearer after that. My voice, saying things I thought but never spoke. The mirror smiled before I did. Shadows moved when I stayed still. At 3:17, the house felt awake in a way that made daylight feel like a lie. I left before it finished, but leaving doesn't mean escaping. Sometimes mirrors still lag. Sometimes silence feels crowded. Sometimes when the world goes still enough, I hear bare feet dragging behind me, careful not to be noticed. If you're listening to this and something in your room feels wrong, don't acknowledge it. Don't give it a pattern to follow. Darkness doesn't rush, it waits. Some stories stay with you until the next street tale.